A high school teacher sets out on a mission to clear her name after salacious edited pictures of herself go viral. Unbeknownst to her, a serial kidnapper is sullying her image for his own nefarious reasons. In a dark basement in an undisclosed location, the confused Amy wakes up on a mattress on the floor. Next to the woman are pictures of herself in revealing clothing. Then she sees her missing posters plastered all over the wall. She bangs on the locked door and screams out for help. When she steps back to look around, she reads ominous phrases about how her loved ones will never find her. Elsewhere at Fieldgate High School, media studies teacher Emily Bennett admonishes her students Josh and Lewis for their crude choice to focus their cameras on the cheerleaders for their film project, instead of recording the football game. The teens try to explain that recording the game was boring and they chose to feature the beautiful cheerleaders instead. However, the teacher says they're exploiting and demeaning their schoolmates based on angles they chose. She says that if they don't want a failing grade, they need to change their project, to Josh's annoyance. After school, Josh waits for Emily by her car to confront her about the project. The teacher reiterates that he has to do as she says or risk a failing grade. He explains that he won't have enough time to redo the film since they have midterm exams to prepare for, so the woman grants him a week extension. However, the teen insists that he shouldn't have to do the project anymore and rudely curses Emily as he walks away. Meanwhile, in the basement, Amy hears a truck outside the tiny window and defeatedly cries for help. That evening, Andrew pulls into Emily's driveway and enters the house. Inside, he finds his girlfriend fixing herself up in front of the mirror. He thought they were supposed to go out to dinner, but the woman says she had a stressful day at work and would rather spend the night at home. Then the couple share a kiss and make love on the bed. The next morning, Andrew says he has to meet with their business partner Justin for a few hours. She says if he moved in with her, he wouldn't have to go home to change every time he spends the night at her house. While they make out, Justin interrupts the couple with his incessant calls, forcing Emily to answer. In a cafe, the man's credit cards are declined at the counter, prompting the impatient cashier to ask him to pay in cash. Eventually, he informs the couple that technological firm CEO Warren Morrow has agreed to a pitch meeting. Later at the conference room, the trio pitch their virtual tutor software system, which doesn't impress the executive. Suddenly, Warren Morrow enters, mentions Paradigm Systems, Andrew and Justin's former employer, and asks Emily to continue the pitch. After the woman's confident speech, Warren is sold on their product and says he expects it to be ready for a trade show in Las Vegas in 3 weeks. When Andrew says they don't have the workspace, the CEO promises to provide them with offices and equipment in the building which they can utilize. The next day, 3 students from Fieldgate High School, including Lewis, volunteer to test the trio software, and Warren sits in to observe. That night, in the basement, Amy's masked abductor sneaks into the room and incapacitates her with chloroform. Meanwhile, Emily stays after school hours to catch up on work. Her co-teacher and friend Karen stops by to see how she's doing before heading out. In the computer lab, the masked man uses one of the devices to send multiple files to all the teachers' and students' email addresses. As the woman gets in her car to leave the premises, the mystery man watches her drive away. The next morning, Emily makes her way into the school and notices the strange look she's getting from all the students and staff. In the teacher's lounge, she asks her colleagues what's going on, when Principal Walters arrives to call her into her office. There, the older woman shows her multiple scantily clad pictures of the teacher on her computer. Shocked, Emily insists that she isn't the woman in the edited photos and mentions how easily anyone could have made them with today's technology. Principal Walters believes her, but because the pictures have gone viral, she thinks it's best if the teacher takes a temporary leave of absence while the matter is investigated. At the moment, the theory they have is a disgruntled student Emily might have given a failing grade. Without much of a choice, the woman agrees to her superior's orders. As the distraught teacher walks down the hallway, Karen comforts her and says she believes it wasn't her friend in the pictures. Later at the office, Emily interrupts the men's meeting to speak to Andrew. In the conference room, she shows her boyfriend the pictures. As he takes a closer look at one of the photos, he points out a tattoo on the woman's backside, which looks just like his girlfriend's. At the police station, the teacher informs Detective Costa that the pictures are fabricated, but she worries how whoever made them knew about her tattoo. The cop says he'll send the photos to forensics and see what they can do, but says the laws regarding internet defamation are still evolving. He asks the woman to make a list of people she thinks might know about the tattoo. After she steps away, the woman breaks down in tears and Andrew comforts her. The next day, the trio meets with the CEO, who was made aware of the picture's existence by Justin. Even though the images are likely fake, fake, he anticipates it turning into a PR nightmare which the company has to deal with, and Justin agrees. So the woman says she'll transfer her shares over to her partners if that's what Warren wants, but the boyfriend objects. He reminds them that Emily is as much a part of the project as either of them, but the CEO says he has investors to report to. Eventually, she says the police will have the results of the forensic investigation in a few days, so Warren agrees to wait for the report before he makes his final decision regarding the matter. That night, two boys explore an abandoned building in the middle of the city. Moments later, they enter a room where they discover the unconscious Amy. When the woman gasps awake, the spooked children run out of the room. The next morning, Emily cleans up her desk and heads down the hallway. Suddenly, Josh mocks her about the compromising pictures, prompting Karen to reprimand the student. Later, while the teacher loads her things onto her car, Josh watches from afar. Then the woman's phone rings and she answers the call. Soon, the woman barges into the office to confront her partners about a call she received from the bank regarding insufficient funds in the business account from which some checks were issued. She says the bank called to inform her that they're taking the money from her personal credit line. Finally, Justin admits he took out an advance from the business account for personal expenses. When the couple expresses their exasperation and disappointment, he says they don't have to worry because they'll make 50 times the initial amount if they can close the deal with Warren. When Justin promises to find a way to return the money he borrowed, the skeptical woman walks away. So the guilty man apologizes profusely and says now isn't the right time to show infighting in front of Warren. He informs the teacher that they discovered a bug in the system yesterday, and the man agreed not to tell her because she's already dealing with a lot at the moment. Justin says fixing the bug won't be an issue, but fixing it in time for the trade show could be a problem. Annoyed and disappointed, Emily says they still should have told her about it. Meanwhile, Amy wakes up from a nightmare and finds herself safe and sound in a hospital bed, with her boyfriend Brian comforting her. When he says everything's okay, she frantically says she needs to speak to the police because the man who abducted her is going after someone else. That night, while Emily is soaking in the bathtub, the masked man sneakily enters her house. He quietly heads to her bedroom and sees the woman in the tub, but the noise his shoes make alerts the teacher. She puts on her robe and checks if Andrew is in the house, while the intruder sneaks past her. When she returns to the bathroom, she sees the man in the mirror. Frightened, Emily grabs scissors to protect herself, but sees the man run out of the back door. In the kitchen, she finds an envelope with Miss B written on it. Minutes later, the woman has a hard time giving Detective Costa an apt description of the trespasser. The cop says whoever is tormenting her is most likely a student, co-worker, or parent who has a score to settle. Even if she has a hard time believing anyone she knows would do this to her, she mentions Josh as a possible disgruntled student. Then, Detective Costa asks if anyone has a key to her house, and she says only her boyfriend does. When she realizes the cop is considering Andrew as a suspect, she refuses to acknowledge the possibility because she knows he would never do anything to harm her. The next day, Andrew discovers that his girlfriend spent the night in the office, and she reveals that someone broke into her house. She asks why he never answered any of her calls last night, and he says he was out late. However, the teacher says she swung by his place at 1 a.m. and he wasn't there. The man reasons that he didn't know what time he came home, but promises to take the day off to take care of her. Although she appreciates the gesture, she says she needs to focus on work right now. As she leaves, the detective calls to inform her that Josh was at the hospital visiting his dad at the time of the break-in. Then he asks if she can accompany him to Washington, D.C. this afternoon to meet a woman who might be connected to her. Later that day, the teacher and the cop are greeted by Detective Nolan, who's handling Amy's case. In the hospital room, Amy recounts that she was at a bar enjoying a drink when she suddenly felt dizzy. She tried walking back to her car but lost consciousness just before she reached the vehicle. She says everything started a week before she was abducted. First, degrading fabricated photos circulated via company emails. Then the man broke into the house while Amy was there. Eventually, the women compare the edited pictures and realized that their faces were superimposed on the body of the exact same woman, solidifying the fact that they most likely have the same tormentor. Amy shares that during the last interaction she had with her abductor, he said he didn't need her anymore because he found someone new, and Emily realizes he was talking about her. Later, the two detectives and the teacher are in a coffee shop to discuss the case. The cops think they found two related cases with the same specifics as Amy's and Emily's. All the victims are from the same general area and work in software design. They mention that Amy also worked as a temp in several technological firms in the city, even if she isn't convinced that that the fact that she works in software design is reason enough to believe that she shares the same tormentor as the other victims. She asks the detectives what her next step should be. Detective Costa says she needs to lay low for a while to ensure her safety. So she says she'll stay at Karen's place, but she'll swing by her house to get some things. After she leaves, Detective Nolan asks the man why he didn't tell Emily about how Amy used to work for Paradigm Systems, the same company Andrew and Justin used to work for. He reasons that telling the teacher might tip off either man about their investigation, and they could look for a new victim. She thinks it's risky setting Emily up as bait, but the man says it'll be worth it. Later that day, Lewis informs the teacher that a link to a website featuring her is circulating around the school. Soon, the woman confronts Josh at the skate park and threatens to report him to the authorities. So the teen admits an anonymous person just sent him the link, which he then showed to his friends. That night, Emily visits the website and realizes that it features different live streams from multiple cameras all over her house. Minutes later, the forensic expert informs Detective Costa and the teacher that they found several high-tech hidden cameras and microphones, so the cop tells him to collect any DNA evidence they can gather. Suddenly, the masked man speaks to the woman through a video call. She asks him why he's tormenting her, and he indifferently says that he's doing it just because he can. When she mocks him, the man says that even if they shut down the website, he's already collected plenty of actual pictures of the woman from the hidden cameras and promises to continue ruining her life. The next day, Detective Costa tells Emily that the website charged for subscriptions in order to view the live streams from her home. He also says that they were able to trace the payments to the Cayman Islands, and yesterday, 6 U.S. accounts received transfers from the offshore accounts, including one linked to Andrew. The cop reveals that Amy also worked for Paradigm Systems, same as Andrew and Justin. She asks why they haven't arrested her boyfriend yet, so the detective explains that their evidence as of the moment is circumstantial, until they can issue a subpoena to view his bank statements. Suddenly, the teacher receives a call from Andrew, who just found out that she's been staying at Karen's. The man wonders why she never told him where she was, so she explains that the authorities thought it'd be safer that way. When he wants to talk about their relationship, she says she needs some time alone. So Andrew says they fixed the bug in their software and Warren wishes to meet with them tonight. That night, Emily agrees to carry a tracker in her purse so the police know where she is while in the building. Later, the detective waits in a van outside while Emily heads to the office. When she finds the room empty, she calls her boyfriend to ask where they are. Seconds later, she finds a CD in Justin's bag with her name written on it, so she inserts it into the computer and opens the folder. Inside, she sees the same edited pictures as well as a link to the live streams. Suddenly, Justin arrives, and the woman pretends she was just waiting for him. To get back downstairs, she says she forgot something in her car and leaves the office. However, the man says she forgot her purse, and when he sees the CD case on the table, realizes she's already seen it. Justin chases her to the elevator and tries to explain why he has the CD, but the woman doesn't want to hear his excuses. When he tries to convince her to return to the office to talk, she pushes him to the ground and evades him in the stairwell. As she waits for the elevator, Warren appears from the carriage, so she tells him that Justin was behind the pictures and the website. She leads him back to the office to show him the evidence. While she looks it up on the computer, the CEO opens a bottle of water which he offers to the teacher. When Warren asks if she thinks Andrew knew about Justin's activities, she says she and the authorities did at first, but now she isn't sure. The man thinks they need to tell the police right away, so they head to the elevator. Before the doors close, Emily suddenly feels dizzy, but says she's okay. Meanwhile, Justin reaches the lobby just as Andrew arrives for the meeting. In the elevator, the teacher's vision begins to blur. The CEO says they're headed to the parking garage because it'll be safer if he drove her to the police station. Because she left her purse in the office, the police think she's still in the building. In the parking garage, Warren leads the lightheaded Emily into his vehicle. After Justin tells Andrew everything that he found out about the teacher's pictures and the website, the boyfriend punches his friend for failing to tell him immediately. Soon, the police intervene and break the men apart. Detective Costa orders his men to check on Emily. Eventually, the officers inform the detective that the woman isn't in the office, so he calls her cell phone, but Warren warns her not to answer it. In the lobby, Justin says he discovered the website 2 days ago when he accessed Warren's personal files while fixing the bug. When the cop asks why he didn't report it immediately, he says he wanted to wait a few days until they closed the deal, because what he did was illegal. In the car, the CEO reveals that he's wanted Emily since the first time he saw her. Realizing she's in danger, the woman opens the door and rolls out of the moving vehicle, so the crazed man chases her into an alley. She's able to call the detective, but Warren grabs it and throws it on the ground. Worried the woman might be in jeopardy, Detective Costa tells his men to trace her call. After After they inform him of the coordinates, he and the other officers head out. Meanwhile, the deranged CEO corners Emily, and when she says the authorities will find him, he says he'll simply transfer the money into Andrew's bank account to set him up for the crime. Seconds later, she grabs a bucket and swings it at him, then runs to escape. Unfortunately, Warren takes out a gun and fires a warning shot, prompting the woman to stop in her tracks. When they hear the police sirens nearing, the teacher runs toward them, but before the detective can take him down, the CEO manages to shoot her in the back. Days later, Andrew visits the recovering woman in the hospital. She apologizes for refusing to believe him, but he says it was probably difficult to do so because the CEO framed him. When she says she isn't ready to talk about their relationship, he politely leaves so she can rest. Seconds later, the woman follows him to the hallway where they share a kiss.